Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MT Predictor software program. In today's MT Predictor training, I'd like to look at quite a few things, but let's start with our risk disclaimer. Just remind you that all examples in this training room should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a loss of or there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly, accept that losses can and will and do unfold. It doesn't matter what trading approach you take, there always will be losing trades. In fact, we'll be looking at some losing trades in today's webinar. Today, I want to cover quite a few things. The NQ this morning has given some brilliant examples of what we do with standard trade setups, with advanced trade management, and looking for some more advanced manual trade setups as well. So we'll be going through these in today's trading webinar. If you don't trade the NQ or you trade other markets and other timeframes, it doesn't matter because the same approach that we look at in this is on all markets and all timeframes. You're just looking for a multiple timeframe approach using two different timeframes between 3 and 5 timeframes apart. So on the NQ, we'll be looking at 3 minutes and 15-minute timeframes. If you say trading daily stocks, you're then using the weekly for your higher time frame. If you're, say, using a daily forex for your higher time frame, you perhaps want to do your trade setups on perhaps a shorter time frame, perhaps a 4-hourly one. I also want to have a look at our new scripts in TradingView because we released these this morning. So I'm hoping that all you guys who are using TradingView already, excuse me, will have upgraded to these and be using some of the new features. So I'll start the analysis with this, and then I'll move over to our standalone. But the same approach is also in our NinjaTrader 8 add-ons as well. So let's just have a look at the NQ. Right, so how do we approach this sort of standard MT Predictor trade setups? Well, first and foremost, you can see we have setups on our charts here, automatic setups, but we don't just take these blindly. We don't take these blindly because we know and understand that markets are basically random half the time. So in other words, 50% of the time, we can't get any discernible clear pattern, therefore we shouldn't be taking any trade setups at all. So of course, the question is, well, how do we decide whether a setup's a good setup? How do we know when the large degree picture is clear? Well, this is when we go to the higher time frame chart. So if you're on a 3-minute chart, you go to a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. In this case, it's the 15-minute. If you're, say, trading, as I said earlier, if you're, say, trading daily stocks, you go to the weekly. If you're trading, say, 15-minute Forex, you go to the hourly. What we do is we place our DPs on the chart. Now, on our new scripts in TradingView, these are dead easy. Once you've placed them on the chart, whoops, they have little helpers there. So you can just grab and drag them to different highs and lows. It is quite slick, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the training mode here, or the bar replay mode, and go back to before this high here this morning here came in. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this to the last swing pivot high. You see, I'm going to put it on this pivot high here. Do you see that? So when a market is retracing back up, we use the last swing into the high or low. So this is the low, this is the last swing into this low. So therefore, this would be the DP that we use. Just going to make it a bit bigger. So do we see that? That's on the chart there in advance. I'm just going to put a little rectangle around it so it just keeps it on the chart if we change things. Just going to put that in there. Going to lock that so it stays where it is. So that's the first point. Do we all understand? Is that we are looking for areas that are basically on the chart in advance. In other words, we're looking for things in the future. In other words, this is a potential area of where the market may make a reversal. If I turn trading mode off, you can see that this is what the NQ did indeed do. Do you see that? It rallied up to that level and made the high at that level. So when we come down to the shorter time frame chart, just let that recalculate. I'm going to change this to that pivot high there. Quite nice the way you can grab and drag these now. I don't know what you guys think you're using TradingView now, but to be able to grab and drag the DPs, quite slick, isn't it? Quite nice and easy. Right, so this is what we have now. Do you see what the difference is now when we get up to here? Do you see what's happened? The market's gone up. It's now made a trade setup on the shorter time frame. But do you see what's happened? That shorter time frame setup has come in at the higher time frame resistance. In other words, the two things are doing the same thing. Notice I haven't talked about the alerts, which you can set up in TradingView or the scanner or Market Analyzer. I haven't talked about our MTP trend. Why is the STF on there? Sorry about that. Shouldn't have that. That should be the MTP trend. MTP trend, that's the one we use. Sorry about that. I haven't talked about our MTP trend color, but as you can see, that did actually agree with this by the MTP trend being either gray or red if we're looking for a sell trade, gray or blue for a buy trade. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the markets to basically be telling us the same thing on multiple time frames. So that's why this was a good trade setup to take, and the large degree picture was clear. This sell setup here, a bit earlier, do you see we have a little history triangle here? Do you see that little green triangle there? So there was a potential sell setup there, but do you see why that wasn't a good one to take? It wasn't a good one to take because the market was coming up here. It hadn't reached our higher time frame resistance, therefore wasn't at an area where the market was likely to make a reversal. This was also confirmed by MTP trend being blue. So obviously you don't want to sell against the incorrect MTP trend color, obviously, unless you're an advanced trader. And we've talked about that in other trading webinars. But for now, you see, well, that was not a good one to take, and this one was. If I go out to the 15-minute chart, now I'm just going to pull this DP down to this low here. And you see how the market did indeed go down to this low. I'm just going to put a little box around this as well, just so we know where it is. Of course, this is easy to do when you're doing it for real, because obviously, you know, you've got lots of time in between. So do you see what happened? The market went from this higher time frame resistance down to this higher time frame support. So within that decline, this was also a good trade setup to take. Do you see that? It was also a good trade setup to take there. So this one would also be a good one to take. That obviously would have been resulted in a good trade. This VS buy setup was also a good one to take. Excuse me. Also a good one to take because it was at higher time frame support. So exactly the opposite as we had here. But as you can see, the market didn't unfold as anticipated. So this one would have been a losing trade. That's why it's important that we use position sizing. So let's place the analysis on the chart. So I'm just going to go to trade setups. When you first place our trade setups on the chart, we have to have a hard-coded pivot time in here. This is a bit frustrating with TradingView and their Pine scripts because it's hard-coded into when we first coded the script. So obviously this is the 4th to 4th, which obviously is a couple of months ago now. So ideally what we want to do is we want to try and get this on the chart somewhere, and then we can grab and drag it around. So I'm just going to look for a pivot time around here somewhere, which is 4:48 on June the 7th. So I'm just going to go to June the 7th, sometime early in the morning. Can you see how it's now placed on the chart there? There it is on the chart. It's there ready for us. So I'm now going to click Analyze Trade Setup, do OK. And what we can do now, as you can see, there's the TS. It just says on that bar. Now, obviously, it's a grey bar, so there's no trade setup on the grey bar. But once it's in and around your current day, what you can do is you can now grab and drag it onto the setup. So here, I'm going to grab and drag it onto that red bar. Do you see that? I've grabbed and dragged it onto there. It will now analyze that setup and then place our position sizing on and our risk reward at our first target. So as you can see, this was a nice trade setup into our first target, where the profit was a nice 3-point R profit. Let's just easily grab and drag that onto our next setup, which was our TS21. You see, this is really easy. This is why I suggest if you're using TradingView, you have this on your chart sometime, anywhere on today's data somewhere, So then as soon as a setup appears, you can just grab it, drag it, drop it onto the colored reversal bar that you wish to, i.e. red for sell or blue for buy, and instantly it will place the analysis on for you. This makes it really quick when you're using this, sort of in live fire. This was another good trade setup. Went down to the first target where a plus 2.9R profit was available. Let's grab and drag it down to this blue buy bar down here. Remember, blue for a buy, red for a sell, and gray means nothing. Now, obviously, this is the risk exceeded, but perhaps you might have been using the micros and got into this trade. If you had have done, as I said earlier, this would have been stopped out. So this would have been a losing trade, even though it was at higher time frame support. So this is what we understand with MT Predictor, in that even though you have good trade setups where the picture's clear, you still can make losing trades. It's important to say this right at the start of our teaching and actually make you really understand that successful trading is not about having a high percentage of winners. It's about when the losers come through, these losses are small, but when the profits come through, the profits are large in relation to the losses. Do you remember what we've been talking about over the last few weeks? Is that the first thing we need to do as a trader is to try and stop making the stupid mistakes. In other words, stop throwing money away. And for that, you need to have the discipline. So that's why we only look to trade when the picture's clear. This is why we use the multi-time frame approach. The second thing we need is to have our losses small. This is what we've seen down here, is that when the losses come through, the losses are small, and that keeps our losses at what we call -1R or 1 risk unit. The next thing we want to try and do is have profits that over time are large in relation to the losses. So here, this profit here was plus 3.2R. Now that's obviously bigger. Than the losses. It's what we want. Timo, no, the grey bars mean nothing. It's blue for a buy, red for a sell, grey for nothing. But what I want to do now as well is just, rather than in TradingView, and we'll come back to TradingView at the end if there are any questions on using the new TradingView scripts. If there are, we can actually have a look at using those for you guys who are using them anyway. And I'd like to get some feedback from you as well towards the end of the webinar. But I just want to skip over to our standalone version and do exactly the same. So I'm just going to place the 15-minute DP on. There it is. There's the 15-minute DP there. Here's the 15-minute down there. Go back to the 3-minute. I'm just going to place the analysis on here. So the third thing that we've been talking about in quite detail over the last few weeks is trying to let our trades run, isn't it? We've been trying to look at let trades run. So for you guys who are more experienced, rather than just taking this trade setup and coming out with a nice 3.2R profit, I've been trying to get you guys who are more experienced with the software to consider trying to run them to the next higher time frame support and resistance. So in other words, that would have meant, rather than coming out here, looking to run it into this next support zone. So rather than here, looking to run it into this support zone, so that would increase that 3R profit into nearer 9R or 9.8. Can I say 10? Is that close enough to say 10R, just for approximation? So do you see how, once you're more experienced, this can then help your profit potential so much more by allowing you to run your profits a lot further and thus have a lot greater R profits. So here it turned a $400 risk into nearly $4,000 profit. So that's what the more experienced guys among you want to be trying to do as we look to run our trades a bit further. Also, what I've talked about is pyramiding, isn't it? So let's say you were in this trade here already, and you wanted to add to your existing positions. You could add by having this next trade set up here that's also in the same direction. Again, this is for the more experienced users among you. But if you do add, the only thing I say is bring your stop to break even on your first trade. So if you are shorter from this DP and you add by being more short here or adding more short positions here, then bring your stop on your first position to break even. Again, looking to run this down into this level here, could then add an extra 6R profit on there. So those two combined could be 16 our profit. So do you see how now, once you become more experienced, you can look to really increase that profit side of the equation. The last thing I want to look at on this example, this is why this is absolutely an amazing example, because it's got all the things we've talked about in the last sort of 6 months of webinars all together in one perfect example. So let's say that you missed. Oops, I'm just going to go back to here. Let's say that you missed this first trade setup. Let's say you came into the office, you'd missed it, and you think, no, I can't get in here because it's now finished. But you know the large degree trend is down. Our first potential support zone is the DP of the last swing into that high. So you know that this could be an area of potential support. So let's go forward a bit. What does the NQ do? Well, it goes right down to that level. And that's where it starts to then go back up again. So it's doing exactly what we anticipate. This is what we're looking for. Remember, I'm trying to get you guys to work in advance. And when the market's not doing what you anticipate, which it won't do half the time, you stand aside. But when it is doing what you anticipate, this is what I want you guys to get to do. Is I want you guys to use what you know with the tools you've got. So what do we know about after this? Well, we know the market trend is down. Therefore, we're looking for potential trade setups. Ideally, it should unfold in an ABC and give us a sort of wave 3 trade setup here. But if it doesn't, the other thing we've talked about, again, for the guys who are more experienced, is sometimes the market will make what we call a single swing correction. Where's the area that you have to be ready for if there's a single swing correction? Well, this is where our WPT tool comes in. So we're using a WPT tool. It's hard to say quickly, isn't it? A wave 2 will be up. So we're looking for an area, click there. We're looking for an area of approximately here, where we're looking for a potential single swing correction. So let's move forward. Nothing yet, nothing yet, nothing yet, nothing yet. Suddenly, do you see we have a red sell bar? So this red sell bar could be used, if you're more experienced, to set up a manual trade setup at this area, because you see where it's unfolding. It's unfolding right in our wave 2 or B zone. In other words, this is the area we anticipate a single swing correction will unfold if it's going to unfold. If it doesn't, you'll then have a losing trade. We can then set up a manual risk reward. Where would our target be? Well, our target would be our 15-minute DP down here, wouldn't it? So our target would be down here somewhere. We move forward, it then takes you into a short trade. If the market goes up, it will stop you out and you'd have a 1-hour loss. This is what we know. When the trades don't work, you will have a 1-hour loss. Loss is kept small. If it does unfold as anticipated, which it did in this case, there's your second opportunity or your another opportunity to get in short down to that higher time frame support for, well, there you go. It's actually 11-hour profit at that example there. So I just think this NQ example is just encapsulated all the things that we're trying to do with MT Predictor. It's encapsulated using the higher time frame area to then look to then take shorter term trades at the higher time frame reversal. It's then encapsulated looking to take trades that have fallen after the higher time frame resistance, in this case, i.e. reversal, into the next DP support or resistance, support in this case. So then taking trades in the direction of the large degree trend. We've also had a look at, then for more experienced users, looking to run your trades. We've also had a look at losses, like this one here, that if the market then does make a losing trade, it reverses, it will be what we call a -1R or 1 risk unit loss. We've then also looked at the single swing correction into the wave 2 or B DP. So I just find it absolutely amazing that just this morning, we've had all these things come together just on this one chart in the last few hours. So for you guys who are using MT Predictor and you want to become more experienced at using MT Predictor, these examples here basically encapsulate what we can do. But you see how the things I'm teaching you is taking you far beyond just simply looking at the automatic setups. We don't just look at these, we look at these in context with the higher degree or the higher time frame DPs. Then I've also looked at trying to take you further. In other words, not just taking a setup like this. I've tried to get you to then look to take that a bit further, to then increase the profits. Also look to then use the patterns that we understand, not just the ABCs, but the single sig correction, again, to then cover potential manual trade setups, again, for you guys who are more experienced. But you start to see how MT Predictor really is a toolbox. It's a toolbox that allows you to use these tools to uncover and manage your trades far, far greater than just purely and simply looking at the automatic trade setups on the surface. So this is why I always want you guys to come into the training like this to be able to see how to take MT Predictor to much, much higher levels. So some great examples there. One thing I want to have a quick look at, I just want to quickly skip over to Forex because there was a great example I was looking at earlier with someone on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. This time, this was on a daily chart. So here's the previous swing pivot high. This is what the Canadian dollar did. It went up to that level there. We had then on a 4-hourly chart, I think we looked at this last week, didn't we? Not last week, 2 weeks ago. We had then a VS sell on the 4-hourly chart at the higher time frame DP resistance. So there was your initial trade setup for a nice 3-hour profit. But this is where perhaps using the higher time frame DPs, there's the DP down there. Do you see how that's still on the chart in advance? So when you're on the shorter time frame, I wonder whether the Canadian dollar is going to go down to that level. If it does, it'll be almost 15-hour profit. If it doesn't, well, we don't quite know. But you see how you can look to try and manage these a bit further. In fact, actually, there's one of these ones earlier here as well that we're looking at. Oh, that seems to have locked up a bit now. That's a bit frustrating. Where we were looking at a market that was rallying into the higher time frame resistance. Might try and come back to that. I don't quite know why that's locked up there. Yeah, that's a bit frustrating. What I'll try and do is perhaps try and open that chart again. I don't quite know why this is not working on the standalone version here at the moment. Oh, that's frustrating. So we can't look at those Forex charts. That is very frustrating on that. Don't quite know what happened on that one there. But you get the idea of what we're looking to try and do. Right, so let's bring well, actually, just before that, are there any questions on what we've talked about so far? Are there any questions on the analysis we've been doing on the NQ from this morning? I mean, most of you guys who are quite experienced with MT Predictor, but are there any questions on what you've seen so far? Maybe some of the new guys who are in the webinar, feel free to ask any questions you wish on what we're looking at here. Any questions on what we've looked at so far? No questions on that. So you're all a bit quiet, which is okay. So what I'll do is I'll bring back TradingView and just have a look at some other things we've got on this. I'll just clear this all off. So on the trade setups, I'm just going to take the trade setups off. Oh, by the way, if you guys are looking to try and use a manual risk reward to try and have a look at extending the risk reward down using the higher timeframes on TradingView, what you can do is you can untick the show the risk reward analysis here. So if I untick this, look what it does to the setups here. What it will do is, as it recalculates, it's taking the risk reward analysis off while still keeping your targets on. So if you're, say, have a setup that's got the WPTs on, then you can know where the further ones out are. So what I can do is leave that on, so the setup on, and then what I can do is if I go to our risk reward, then it says you've got to select the entry bar. So I'm going to select the entry bar, select the stop bar, and then come down and select the target price. And you see what that's done. If I actually get it the right way around by using short rather than long. So that then has allowed me to, where's the entries things here? I haven't got the entry price and the stop price in the right place, have I? That's short. Just going to delete that for a second so I can work on what I've got. Right, where's the stop price on that? There's the stop price. So the stop price will go above there. The entry price. There's the entry price. Got those slightly the wrong way around. I did that too quickly. Sorry about that. So I did that far, far too quickly. Sorry about that. Right. Now I know whether. See, what you can do is if you get confused, you can actually just use these times and entries to then just move them around a bit. So if you do get a bit confused like I did there, you can move them around. So now I'm going to bring that down onto the stop bar, the entry bar there, with the target one at this level. With the target one, you can grab and drag around. So do you see what you can do now? You can then use your manual risk reward on TradingView as well. Yes, yes, Mazir, you're dead right. Is that Mazir said about the alerts as well? Is that when you're then creating the alerts for these, if you're then creating an alert, all you need to do is just create an alert for the MTP trade setup, because we've combined the advanced and the standard trade setups into one script. So you only have one to then use for the alert. So you just put the MTP trade setups in for the alerts. So when you have your alerts going, you only need one for each MT predictor trade setup. So that's made it a lot slicker as well. But yeah, so what I was trying to show you is if I put the trade setups back on again there. It can just show you the targets as well. So, rather than having coming in at that target there, you can grab and drag and then bring it down to your higher time frame target as well. That just makes, if you're using TradingView, it just makes things just that much easier. You can also just hide the scripts as well. So if I just want to hide that for a second, you can hide the trade setups there as well. Because one thing also, what you can do is our Elliott Wave tool. Again, that's really easy to place stuff on the chart. But what was interesting is going into this setup here, I take the DP back up to that level there. So we're at DP resistance, but if I add the Elliott Wave pattern, Elliott Wave script on as well, you have to select a pivot time. So I'm just going to select that up here somewhere. Let it recalculate. If I grab and drag it to that pivot high there, do you see what the pattern was going up into that high? Do you see how that was also a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the high coming in at the minimum wave 5 WPT? So what do we know about that? Well, we know that If the market exceeds the DP from the wave 4, i.e. that DP there, which we assume it is going to because this was coming off a higher time frame resistance, if it exceeds that DP there, it then tends to retrace the entire prior 5-wave sequence. So what it means is the market tends to go down to the DP off the start of the entire sequence, which is off this pivot here. So it tends to go down to that level there, which is what it did. And obviously that coincides with the 15-minute support zone as well. So that's another added thing you have in that in this setup here as well, in that this was also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going into the that high there. One thing also nice to do is if you do the analysis is on the visual order, make sure you bring to front, and then you make sure that our colored reversal bars are on the top. And also as well, it's worth actually making sure that these are the same as you've got on your chart here. So if you have like solid candles here, and in our analysis you have hollow candles, you see that? Hollow candlesticks, then make sure that on the TradingView chart, you also have hollow candlesticks as well. So if you have the same, then it just makes things look a bit smarter. Or perhaps if you just use open, high, low, close bars on here, just make sure you have the same in your MTP analysis scripts as well. So just make sure they're just the same. And if they are, it just keeps your charts looking at just a little bit smarter. So yes, there's a lot you can do in our trading scripts, TradingView scripts now. They are quite slick, and obviously as TradingView increase the capabilities of PineScript, then we'll look to do a lot more as well. Because there's lots and lots we've done in the background here. In this, these aren't just additions to our scripts; these have completely been rewritten from the ground up to take account of not only the version 5 features like this grab and drag that we have now. That's why we can do the DPs and edit waves like this. Not only that, but they have library functions. So it means that our scripts now are far more efficient, they're faster, and they're a lot more reliable as well than they ever were, because we put all our main processing in some library scripts that keeps them all separate, so we don't have to keep reusing it again and again and again through the script. So that's quite a neat way of doing that as well. So yeah, so the TradingView scripts are quite a big improvement on what we had before. And as I said, as TradingView increase their capabilities in their PineScript, will obviously increase the capabilities as time goes on. Sylvia's asked a very good question. He's saying the day session only setups, are they less relevant nowadays than not? And what does Sylvia mean about day session only? If I hide just some of these things here, what he means is if you go to the session, this is the electronic hours. This is basically using the 24-hour chart, or the regular trading hours is here, which is only just using just the day session only charts. In other words, looking at just the day session only from 2:30, from 9:30 to 16:15 New York time. By the way, you can see on a day session only chart, see how I've taken the DP from that last low. Look where we are at the moment. We've come into DP support just as the market's opened. I think there is a place for both sessions, Sylvian. I think as I've been using the 24-hour charts, I tend to use those more. But as I've shown in the past, it's quite nice that, you know, once the US market opens like it has now, is if you use both sessions, and if you get support on both sessions, perhaps like we have at the moment, where you have support coming in here on the day session only, and then we also have, if you go to here, we know we have support coming in on the 24-hour session as well, then it probably is a little bit, you get a little bit better. I think this is now, analysis now decided that it doesn't actually like what I've done there by changing that quite so much. So I'm just going to take the analysis off, put it back on again, and that should be okay. just as it recalculates. There you go. So this is what happens when you first put the analysis on. You see the MTP color reversal bars aren't there. So if you go to visual order, bring to front, then you get the color reversal bars there. Just makes things a lot nicer. And there you see the market looks like it's rallying off that DP low that we looked at a minute ago. Right, so that's all I really wanted to talk about today. So are there any last questions in the last few minutes? Or a question on data feeds for the standalone version? If you could send our sales team an email on that, sales@mtpredictor.com, they'll be able to help you with the data feed choices. But if you're trading cryptocurrencies, then basically we don't have any data feeds into the standalone version for cryptocurrencies. If you're trading cryptocurrencies, the best things to look at are our trading view scripts. And if I open chart I hit here a while ago on Bitcoin, here's a Bitcoin chart as well. They're exactly the same as we have for anything else. So our same kind of setups if you're using TradingView. Timo, what I'm saying is that you look to take trade setups on the shorter time frame if they fall in the round or if they fall in the direction of the higher time frame support and resistance zones. So that's what we're looking to do, is we're looking to use the DPs on the higher time frame charts to then get our support and resistance zones. We're then looking to take trade setups on the shorter time frame that fall in the direction of the large degree trend. We're not looking to try and have a trade set up on a higher time frame at the same time as a shorter time frame, because a setup on a 3-minute will always come before a setup on a 15-minute, for example. So they'll never come at the same time. Right, so if there aren't any more questions, which I think the questions seem to have dried up, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for coming in today's training webinar, and hope you've enjoyed seeing what we looked at in the NQ. I think that's been an amazing example where, we basically encapsulated our whole mythology of trading with MT Predictor basically into one chart, taking us through the standard trade setups, taking us through the higher time frame support and resistance, taking us through advanced techniques of running your profits, taking us through parts of pyramiding, taking us through some manual trade setups, taking us through losing trades, taking us through the whole lot basically. So hopefully you enjoyed going through that on all the different kind of things that we can do with our MT Predictor tool set, and then also having a look at our new scripts with TradingView and seeing these in action as well. I'm just going to unhide the trade scripts there. So thank you to everyone for coming into today. If there are any other questions, please do drop us an email. My direct email is steve@mtpredictor.com, or you can contact our sales team, sales@mtpredictor.com, if you've got any support questions. Support@mtpredictor.com. So have a good trading week, everybody, and we'll be back to do it all again next week.